Be ye notified.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Josie Malloy. I'm the president and CEO for the Grants Pass and Josephine County Chamber of Commerce, and we really appreciate partnering with BBSI. This is actually our third webinar. It's free for everyone, and we record every single one, so you can go back and watch. And any slides we usually share with the participants too. And today I'm very excited. We have Rob Hambleton. He will be the new area manager for BBSI, and he's going to talk about the ABCs of high performance teams. So it should be lots of great information, and I will kick it off to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Josie, and thank you so much, Josie and the Grants Pass Josephine County Chamber for giving us the opportunity. We love doing these, and before I get going into the material, I would like to give a shout out to the other BBSI team members that are here. We have Sarah Lindsay, who will kind of be chiming in here and there as I kind of toss stuff to her. She doesn't know exactly when. I try to make it a surprise when I do that. But Sarah's our HR consultant here in Central Oregon. We also have Todd Tippin, who is one of our business partners there for Business Unit 1, or the SISCU BU in Medford. I believe we also have Suze Montemayor in here. She's HR consultant for Business Unit 2. And I believe Steve Sobey is one of our business partners for Business Unit 2, the Rogue BU there in Medford as well. So you got a bunch of BBSI folks here to help you out. And as we kind of do the little wrap up at the end, if you guys are interested in learning more, we'll be able to point you to some of those resources as we move down the tracks here. We love being in Southern Oregon, and we love what we do. So just hold on, trying to advance slides here. Can I advance? Hold on, there we go. Before I get into the material that's the subject of today's webinar, I do kind of want to contextualize what we're going to be talking about within the framework of what we do as a company. So we're a professional employer organization, or a PEO. More and more people are knowing what a PEO is. The basic idea is we take our services and we wrap them around small to medium-sized businesses to help them survive, thrive, and prosper. That's our mission. So basically, we do payroll processing and reporting, HR compliance and consulting, risk and safety compliance and consulting, and then our workers' compensation coverage is an option that you can either have or not have. We do staffing and recruiting at all levels to help you find the right people for your organizations. What we're going to be talking about today fits within the framework of the business consulting services that we offer. We also do health benefits, a 401k, and we've just added a learning management system that's got a lot of great training content. We also have a lot of training programs that we specifically design for our clients and that we put on from time to time because that's a big part of how we want to help organizations develop. So that's what we do. Within the framework of business consulting, we do it in a lot of different ways with our clients. There are tactical issues that can come up. There are specific things like, what's going on with the economy right now and what can we do to be better prepared for it. That's something we recently did in one of our owner roundtables. There's issues that come up with our clients where they really need a voice and an ear. So a lot of tactical stuff that we do. But one of the big strategic things we do with our clients as early in the relationship as possible is we like to do what we call a deep dive. And what that is that's a way of kind of going through an owner's business and talking about different aspects of the business in different ways that give us a foundation on which to provide our services, but also allows business owners to surface things that they're dealing with in a way that helps us build an action plan to deal with it. So when we structure the deep dive, we'd like our business owners to tell all about their history, why they got into the business, their basic story, current issues that are keeping them awake at night, a little bit of an outlook into the future in terms of how they're seeing the next 3 to 5 years and beyond. And then one of the big things we get into after that is, let's tell us about your team. Tell us about your people in ways where we can try to help you optimize their skills and the way they're lined up and what they're needed. So it's in that vein that we do this ABC player analysis that we're going to talk about in depth. We then go on to talk about where the owner is in the business. We find that most business owners are working way too much in the business when they need to be working on the business. So we talk about different things that we can do to elevate the leadership perspective. We break the business down into what we call business pillars and microanalyze different things like sales pipeline, the individual people, systems and processes and things like that. And then the final big thing that we do is develop an action plan where we go forward with our clients to help them implement the things we uncovered in the deep dive itself. Why would you do an ABC analysis? And an ABC analysis is really not that hard to understand. I'll show you elements of it here in a minute, but it's really just basically taking a look at your organization and kind of ranking your people based on certain parameters. So what we're trying to do here is identify high potential performers and folks with leadership potential, because as we get into leadership perspective, what we're going to try to do with a leader is to try to get them, their head wrapped around the idea that they've got people right underneath them, that if they can develop them and elevate them in the organization, they can disposition things, take them off their plates and give them to those leaders, but leaders need to be developed, so we got to identify who they are. So that's one thing we're trying to do. We're trying to bring some structure to each individual on the team to see where they are, where they need to be, and how we're going to get them there. So we call that individual or employee development planning. We're looking for increasing levels of team cohesion and culture is another word we use there. We're trying to develop a culture or define a culture around how we want to develop it in the organization. We're trying to give business owners different levers that they can use to motivate different levels of employees. And most optimally, when we do this, we're trying to do it in a way where business owners understand if they elevate their team, invest in them in certain ways, they're going to get a very definite return on investment. So that's the big reason that we do it. What do we do it? What are the dimensions of ABC analysis that we focus on when we look at individual people? Well, first of all, we're trying to understand competencies. Where are people in terms of the specific skill competencies that are necessary to match what's needed on the job? There's skill competencies, but also there's relational competencies. As we learned from Daniel Goleman when he published his research on emotional intelligence, 75% of your career success is how you work with other people. So we want to identify those competencies as well. We want to look at developmental capacity. Where do we have the ability to even build on current skills and make them better or bigger? We want to see how well people are aligned with who they are as a person and what they're doing on the job, because we know that when there is alignment there, you get a lot more out of your people. We want to, as part of that, we want to see what people are passionate about and what their initiative and their drive is. How much do they want to grow? All that kind of stuff we want to determine in the ABC analysis. So here's basically how we look at ABC players when we go into the organization. And it's as you would think. It's pretty obvious and intuitive. First one is you've got an A player, tons of potential, tons of capacity. They're operating and knocking it off on all cylinders, and they have the ability and the desire to grow. B players are getting the basic job done, and what we say about C players is they're not getting the job done. So what we need to do there is isolate why they're a C player, why they're not getting the job done, whether it's a job description where they understand what needs to be done, whether it's misalignment with their skills or development of their skills. We need to figure that out. So intuitively fairly obvious. A little bit of a deeper dive into that. With high players, they have high demonstrated competencies and capacities in their current job. You've already been able to see it and evaluate it. They have a strong initiative to grow. They will perform even when the boss isn't present. They're your go-to employees. They have a lot of potential for leadership development, and they want to be leaders. So it's these types of employees that you would invest heavily in mentorship and empowerment and kind of expanding their jobs. And when a business owner is looking at their leadership perspective and being able to disposition certain things that they do, these would be your go-to people, would be your A players. With B players, they have adequate skills, they get the basic job done, and these players are the ones that we want to turn into A players. So here we kind of focus on, if we give them additional training, give them additional capacity, and maybe even work on alignment, we can turn them into A players. So there's a lot of potential to do that with B, and theoretically, there is with C players as well, but I will tell you that although theoretically within the model, you could say that you want to develop C players into B and then A players, very often there are such big performance gaps and such big alignment gaps usually, that what ends up happening with C players is you're either trying to coach them up or over into something where there's better alignment, or out of the organization. And that's another thing that a lot of small business owners delay doing, is isolating and finding those and figuring out what the issue is and then dealing with it. And that's one thing that comes out of a deep dive as well. So there's a little bit of a deeper dive into ABC analysis. So what I want to show you now is an example of how we do it. So we have these beautiful white walls in our office in Medford, and we basically, all this stuff with the story and the current issues and the vision, we just put that all up on the whiteboard, and it's fun. It's just really fun to draw up there on the whiteboard. And so when we get over and talking about team structure, we draw the organizational chart, and then we just start marching through it. First of all, we understand who the current team is and what they do, and then we circle back around with the owner, and let's just say we're going to do the ABC analysis. So we lay that little handout in front of the owner, and we just basically walk through it and say, what would you give these guys, A, B, or C? Now, in each one of those, you don't see it here, you're going to see it in a minute, we're going to ask the question, why? Why is Sarah an A player? And what I usually do, and different folks have different styles when they're going through this, is we'll actually make notes up on the whiteboard as to why they're an A player, B player, or C player. When we get down into B and C players, we would say, well, what's the gap? Help us understand the gap between what you've given them and what an A player is, and then that becomes the fodder or the raw material for how we're going to do development planning. What someone like Sarah or Suze will do, they'll be in the deep dive as well, and they'll be taking copious notes in here. So the stuff that's up on the whiteboard is good high-level stuff, but the stuff that really becomes the foundation for the report that we put together for our clients is this right here, where they'll build on what we came up with when we were doing the ABC analysis in this case. So in this case, we have a general manager of operations. This person ultimately is going to be the go-to person for the business owner to kind of elevate into an ownership potential, but there's some certain areas where she needs to be developed. So over there under the role, you see what she does. We've basically broken down her strengths and her challenges, and then the development plan, the way we can fleshed it out right there in the deep dive, was around leadership perspective, helping her finish her bachelor's degree, doing something around public speaking, whether that's Toastmasters or taking some classes, and then some work around building some HR competencies, accounting and finance basics. So that's good basic raw material for a development plan for this particular person. Kind of critical to focus on this particular person, because in the deep dive, this person was identified as someone that was potentially going to be elevated to basically run the company when the owner stepped off stage in 3 years or so. Another example of an employee that was rated B- to C was someone in accounting, and that basically is getting the basic job done, but has certain deficiencies in certain areas. And so we talked about what those challenges were. You can see the challenges piece of this thing was well fleshed out. There have been developmental opportunities that have not really yielded the results. As a trainer, you guys, I should have said this in the very beginning. Before joining BBSI in 2019, you know, Mary Hambleton and I, my wife, were basically building up Soul Canyon training and development. And so that's what we did for years and years and years. So for us, you know, a carpenter sees every problem as a nail and they want to hammer it. So for us, we see every problem as a training problem initially that can be handled with training. And I think that's a great way to see the potential of your people, is to start with training. But in this particular case, training has been tried, but improvements haven't been seen. So now we need to go to another element of potential development, and that needs to be fleshed out post deep dive, and that's what that development plan needs to be identified on the bottom of the page looks like there. So then this material makes its way to a development plan. And, you know, this is basic, pretty intuitive. You've got basic information about the employee, some discussion generally there on the bottom of the page about the career development plan for this person and where they generally want to go, kind of directionally. And then the rest of the plan is just specific steps that you're going to take, whether these are mentorship, empowerment opportunities, job growth, job shadowing, specific classes. All of that stuff is laid out extremely concretely on this particular plan, and this then becomes part of the document that's produced for our clients to move forward, and we help them execute it. So kind of the big difference with BBSI is a lot of folks will come in a consultant capacity and look at a lot of this stuff, whether it's business processes or your people or whatever, give you a report and then walk away, or, you know, quote you a very high price for continuing to engage to help you implement it. With us, once you're a client, this is part of our total package that we execute. And with that, on this particular page, I kind of like Sarah to talk a little bit about how she hits the ground, you know, with our clients up here in Central Oregon with this kind of material and what she does with it. Sarah, you want to kind of toss in on this one?
Sure. So we basically will sit down and come up with a development plan. So looking at what came out of the ABC player analysis, a lot of different things that we can do to look at some very clear objectives. So, you know, if someone needs to learn Excel or project management, you know, we kind of start coming up with some ideas that would work for them. We do have our learning management system at BBSI that our clients are allowed to subscribe to. It's an additional product that we just launched earlier this year. So we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of classes that might meet the needs, or it might be a local community college, might be self-study, a lot of different ways to look at their development plan. So just basically, I think the most important thing is getting input from the employee on you know, are they bought into this? How are they, you know, how do they feel about the way that they want to go? And then what does the timeline look like? So, you know, you're going to be doing a COCC class at Central Oregon Community College, or is it some different, you know, online classes? Is it reading? Is it, you know, is it a degree that they want to pursue? Basically outlining what that looks like. And you can use a form like this. You could have it be a spreadsheet. It could be a Word document. You know, whatever is very clearly lines out what they're going to do, how they're going to get there. With the dates, you know, is the company going to support the cost of it, and that sort of thing.
Right. So when we see material, when we see something like this that needs to be focused on developmentally, we have a lot of tools to bring to the table, right, Sarah? I mean,
Yes.
we have our learning management system. We have gone out with clients who've said basically across our whole group, you know, we need a team building session. So if we think it's within our scope to be able to execute that, both down in Southern Oregon and in Central Oregon, we've developed those and provide those free of charge for our clients. But when it's beyond our scope or ability to execute, we actually have external training providers like Soul Canyon Training and Development and others we brought to the table for our clients to be able to reach out to. So it's one thing to basically look at a catalog and a list of training or flyers that come across or into your email or whatever, and just see those kind of floating around there. It's a much different thing to take a needs analysis or a development plan like this, either at a team level, organizational, or individual level, and then put those specific resources towards the gap that actually needs to be closed developmentally. And that's what we do. Right, Sarah?
Yes.
All right. We're going to open it up for questions here in a second. I just have some additional thoughts when it comes to putting training together that are often oversights at a small business level. And one of them is learning styles. You know, different people learn in different ways, right? So some of us learn by hearing something. We're auditory learners. Some of us learn by seeing someone else do it or seeing a video on something. Others of us don't really learn it until we actually have a chance to get our hands on something. So the little acronym I like for remembering this as someone who's trying to teach something to someone else is extempora. Explain it for auditory learners, start with that, demonstrate it for visual learners, and then let kinesthetic learners practice. And if you're taking a group through a training experience, do all three in that order, and through that line, you're going to pick up everyone. The other thing to remember as part of this is when you're training someone, whether it's onboarding into a new job, bringing in a new employee, or doing some internal training, a lot of people think I'm going to do a 1 hour class or a 4 hour class or a full day class and they're going to have it. Well, that's simply not true. When something is presented to the conscious brain, It has to go in, be processed, and then practiced several times before it can get all the way to what we call unconscious competence. And that's what Stephen Covey means when he says something like repetition is the mother of mastery. You have to set that up developmentally as part of the training process. So there's identifying the need, applying the learning tool, the class, whatever it's going to be, allowing it to be practiced before you're actually going to get competency at the other end of the pipe. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that often when we go through this process of looking at the structure, the team structure, and we start talking about performance deficiencies, oftentimes what we find, and I'm going to say 90% of the time when we get over the action plan for a business owner, is we find that their job descriptions are either non-existent or they're absolutely horribly ambiguous. And so we do a lot of work to try to get people into the right place with job descriptions. And kind of, here's what I mean when I say a good job description. If you have a good job description, if you worked with an HR professional to develop it, it has the specific tasks that need to be done on the job. It's linked to the competencies that are necessary to do that job well. And then it links directly and maps into the aggregate view of what that job is. It's defined by a set of tasks that are linked to competencies. And when you have a job description that's good, that it's good like that, it's the heart of managing your people well. And what I mean by that is when you have a job description that's that good, you can build behavioral-based or competency-based interview questions that go out and find those people that have those competencies that can perform those tasks. You ask questions around that. You discover that information. You have the basis of being able to performance manage your people. That is, set key performance indicators or goals, and then evaluate them relative to those goals. And when there are shortfalls, build, number 3, development around the skills they need to be able to close those gaps. And then when you have C players or performance shortfalls, you also have the material that you can use to document those shortfalls and your attempts to try to close those gaps. You absolutely need good job descriptions. You need to be able to address learning styles, understand the learning styles of your different folks and accommodate those in training and development that you set up for them. Understand, and this is going to strike you as weird, especially when you hear the way I say it. Training, even if it sucks, is motivational. And why is that? Because when you take time to try to understand your employees to the level of being willing to invest in training and bringing up their skills and developing them as a person, that attention and that focus is inherently motivational. Now, of course, you don't want training that sucks, but you want to really carve out, as part of your process of being a business owner or a manager, developmental time where you're focused on your people, build a developmental plan, and put the right training material to them. And when you invest in that type of approach to your team, you'll develop untapped potential that will immediately pay huge benefits, simply because training is inherently motivational. Focused development, when you go in and identify your A, B, and C players and then address developmental tools to their specific need, saves time, money, and frustration. And that is as opposed to seeing a flyer on Microsoft Excel, seeing a flyer on dealing with conflict, and laying it out there and letting your whole team go through it. I mean, that's awesome, but being focused and strategic about how you do it within the context of a development plan is much more effective. And the last thing I'll say before we open it up for questions here is that as BBSI, as a Central Oregon and as a Southern Oregon member of the business community, we are willing to sit down with you, even if you're not a BBSI client, and go through a basic ABC analysis. Heck, we'll even take you through a deep dive as a way of seeing what we do and how we do it. Of course, we're doing it because we'd love the possibility of you becoming a BBSI client down the line, but we'll do it with you just so you can get a dose of what the proper approach to this world really is. And it's just because all of us working for BBSI have made a fundamental investment and are in alignment with our mission, which is to help our small business owners survive, thrive, and prosper. We all feel that, so we love doing this stuff. Right, Sarah?
favorite thing.
Right, Todd?
It really is a
Absolutely.
favorite
That's why we
too.
get up in the morning.
That's why we get up in the
Absolutely.
morning. And I'm assuming that that Suze and Steve would be, but I can't see their pictures on the screen. So
Hope
I'm assuming
agrees
you're out there.
too.
Hope
Hope
agrees.
agrees.
Hope is there. So with that, you guys, I would love to kind of hand it back over to Josie. Josie, I don't know if any questions have come in to the chat or if people want to put anything into the chat. Would love to be able to.
Yeah, I haven't got any questions yet, but just a reminder, if you do have one, now's the time to ask. You can put it in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and ask it in person, we can do that too.
We'll let that kind of sit out there for a minute. And you guys, this on this last slide, if you would just want to reach out to me, there's my email address. There's my telephone number. If you want to kind of kick this around a little bit, I'm happy to do that. We can talk about any specific needs or questions you have, and then if maybe doing an ABC analysis or any other aspect of what you saw in the deep dive is something you'd be interested in exploring, willing to do that too.
And I'll just add, I've done the deep dive before, well, multiple times, and it is very helpful. And just to evaluate where you are with your employees. So I would definitely recommend it.
I have a question.
Right, go ahead, James.
So I'm the economic development specialist for the city of Grants Pass. And one of my duties is to work with downtown merchants, and I'm currently facilitating downtown merchant meetings. Does BBSI have like customer service training, or even better yet, maybe like a refresher course on leadership and management that maybe will give better perspectives to the merchants on how to hire the correct employee or even deal with employees, because the landscape of employees have changed. I would make that general assumption. And so maybe it's time to evolve. Do you have any type of training for that?
You bet. What I would start with, James, is I'd set up a meeting with you. We'd kind of sit down and frame that out, and it would not be, I mean, we could definitely craft something where we could make a presentation to the group and just kind of lay our stuff out there. But all those topic areas that you talked about are definitely within our bailiwick of where we could put some content, you know, in one of your downtown.
Cool. Yeah, our meetings are about an hour long, but I've had some lots of interest since I've been here about customer service training. So even the merchants themselves, the owners, need a refresher course, and there's something else. But yeah, I'd love to sit down with you and then provide that resource to them for an hour long or so.
Yeah, I'd sit down and kind of frame that out, and once again, just like we do with the development planning for the employees when we take them through a deep dive, once I kind of understood what you're looking for in specific ways, I'd tell you the way BBSI, what we could do, and then potentially I might even put some of our external training resources like Mary from Soul Canyon or others on the table. But it's just all got to be contextualized within what you're looking for. But absolutely, all those areas I would love to sit down with you. I don't know if you got my email address or phone number there. If you reach out, we'll get that set up. I'm going to be in the Rogue Valley next week, and I'd love to sit down and grab a cup of coffee with you.
Awesome. I will email you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions? No, really? No other questions? You must have.
So Rob, can I say something?
Yeah, Mary, go.
Hey, so it's Mary Hambleton with Soul Canyon Training and Development. And, years ago, we did a customer service training for the city of Grants Pass. That was before Josie's time, but we did it at Tap Rock, and it was really awesome. But one of the things that keeps coming to my mind as I'm hearing all of this is, yeah, it's really great to throw training at your people. It's really great to provide them resources. But if you, as an owner, don't walk the walk yourself, if you're not willing to take that training and build it into your company culture, it's all for naught.
That's really true. It's all in the application. It really, truly is.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess my observation is what I hear a lot is I can't find good people, and to me, I'm like, well, what's the common denominator? I'm not blaming on blaming anybody, but maybe that owner that maybe is not finding the right people because they're not doing it in the correct way, or maybe their expectations are too high, or maybe their way of thinking is just old school and out of date.
So just to give you an example, since there's no other questions coming into the chat, let me pull that apart a little bit. Oftentimes when we hear that, I mean, for sure it's true. I mean, given the labor force and everything going on right now, I mean, on its surface, it's more difficult to find good people these days. But there's so many issues to unpack there, right? If you go in and deal with someone who's used to dealing with people, old school, and we were kind of joking around this earlier this morning, just do the job. That's why I hired you. I mean, that doesn't work in today's workforce anymore. People need to really feel aligned, and current generations are much more, generations that are more present in the workforce today are much more about the idea. I mean, we all are, but articulated and on the surface, they're much more about the idea of what they need to do needs to be significant, right? So how do you make it significant? How do you peel that apart? How do you lay what's important to a person up next to, what they're doing on the job and find that alignment? There's one.